Here, there, sensors everywhere. The modern home and cyber exposures. IoT-enabled sensors can be found in nearly every room of the modern home, providing more insights than ever before into homeowners' preferences and patterns. In this session, we're going to learn about the latest homeowner technology and how the data gathered is used to write better coverage. I attended the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas in early January. Smart devices were everywhere, from bath mats that gave blood pressure, pulse, and weight, to sensors that kept beer and wine at exactly the right temperature and humidity. There were toilets that could send health information to doctors when there was a concern, robots that acted as a valet, and companions for the elderly, to driverless cars without steering wheels. Smart homes and the sensors within are just the tip of the iceberg. How does this all fit together? Today, our panel has three experts: James Blackwell from Roost, a leader in home telematics for property, and two forward-thinking insurance companies, Matt Pohl from Neos, a disruptive insurtech from the UK, and Bob Gass, CFM, an AAIS member who is using smart sensors and technology to create a smarter kind of home in his Midwest insurance market. Matt, let's start with you.
Yeah, hi everyone, and thanks, Linda. Yeah, so Neos was a company that we formed back in 2016, which was one of the pioneers in smart home insurance. We saw through auto telematics the opportunity for connected devices to broaden that relationship through interaction and engagement, which hopefully sets up a much stronger relationship between the customer and the insurer, and the ability to maybe deepen that relationship through added value services that the insurer can partner with and offer out to the customer to help them look after their property. We actually send them smart home technology to prevent against the three major perils, which is security, fire, and the escape of water. These devices are connected up. It's all self-installed through the app. People can access their insurance policy through the app and also make changes. And lastly, but not least, and perhaps more importantly, we offer added value services around home repair and emergency sort of issues. You know, it's great to be alerted that you've got a burst pipe. Not so good if you're on vacation or at work. So actually what customers really value is the ability to send somebody out to fix that problem. And they can do all that seamlessly through the Neos app.
Well, thank you, Matt. Next, James Blackwell, Chief Technology Officer and co-founder of Roost, who is a leader in home telematics. James, can you tell us about Roost and how you got started?
Yeah, so Roost started back in 2014, and we started with one question. We were trying to figure out what piece of information was most useful to homeowners when they weren't home. And we looked at lots of different things. We decided it was actually smoke alarms. People wanted to know if smoke alarms were active or not when they weren't home. Smoke alarms work great if you're home. You know, they go off, they wake you up, they tell you to get out of the house. But if you aren't there, you know, do they do any use? So that led us to our first product, which was a smart 9-volt battery for smoke alarms. And it's effectively a Wi-Fi enabled 9-volt battery that you can just pop into any smoke alarm and make it a connected smoke alarm. So it'll tell you, when the alarm's going off when you aren't around. And we started that business as a direct to consumer. So we were in retail. But shortly after we launched, we were approached by several insurance companies. And I think the reason was, the simplicity to install. It's just like changing the battery in the smoke alarm anyway. It was also at the right price point, and it also addressed one of their perils, which was home fires. And ultimately, that led to us pivot to an insurance-only model away from retail in the end. And today, that has evolved considerably. And so, we don't just provide hardware anymore, but we have a whole series of customer journeys that help us figure out how to get customers engaged to want to sign up for the programs. We also handle all the shipping and fulfillment. We'll have a smartphone application that's white labeled for the insurance company, so it's got their logos and their details in it and their color scheme. And that app also includes various third-party services. So we've got actionable weather alerts from the weather company. So it's not just it's 70 degrees and sunny outside, but it's going to hail in half an hour, so bring your car inside. And then we've also got a partnership with Home Advisor with their pro service callback mechanism, and that allows people to have a professional in their area, a vetted professional, call them back within 90 seconds if there's a problem. And then we also have a 24/7 professional monitoring system where, if that's enabled and an alert goes out, a real person from a call center in the US will call you up and just check everything's okay. And then obviously, on the back end of things, there's data streams for the insurer about, what's happening in the home and the data that's coming off the devices. And then we also provide, dashboards with, analysis and insights for the insurers so they can actually take action based on the data that they're getting.
So, James, it sounds like it starts with smart sensors. Can you tell us about what kinds and how they work?
Yeah, so today we have multiple sensors, and they're all targeting key insurance perils. So our original lineup of products were Wi-Fi based, so they connected to Wi-Fi in the home, and they were pretty much targeted at residential applications. And so obviously we had the smart 9-volt battery for smoke alarms. That was the first one, and then we added a water leak and freeze detector, so that could detect, if pipes are dripping under the sink or if the temperature is dropping, to a critical level, it would tell you. And then we also added a garage door sensor, which you stick on the door, and it will tell you, not only when is the door opening and closing, but has it stayed open for longer than it should have done, or is it open past a certain time of day? And then the most useful feature, in my mind, is it tells you when it doesn't open when it should. And our newest product lineup, which we launched last year, is actually a cellular-based product, which is good for consumers, but it also opens up the commercial insurance area, because most commercial properties don't actually have Wi-Fi accessible for us. So this cellular program allows us to get access for that market. And we also have, the various sensors that go along with that. So we have water leak detection still, freeze detection, smoke alarm listening, but we also added power outage detection. And one of our newest products that we've just launched, this year is an active shooter service. So this is for properties where they're concerned that people with guns might turn up and cause trouble. And so this system allows them to silently alert the third-party monitoring service who dispatch the police immediately to that property. And the benefit being, with everything being cellular, it's got zero installation setup. There's no app required for installation. The users just pull the pull tab or plug it in and it works. So this helps reduce the customer hurdles to deployment.
Next, I'm pleased to introduce Bob Gass, the Senior Vice President of Underwriting and Policy Compliance at CFM, and had the opportunity to work with Bob doing some onboarding work. And I saw the CFM logo on the Roost website. So I'm very anxious to share his experience. So, Bob, can you please tell us about CFM?
Thanks, Linda. First off, I want to say I feel accent deficient in this conversation. So, CFM is a Missouri Farm Mutual. We're the largest farm mutual in the state of Missouri. However, on the scope of the larger carriers, we're quite small. We have about 1 in every 12 rooftops that you might see driving down the road in Missouri is one of our insureds. So we're very proud of that. We function mostly in outstate Missouri, more in rural areas as a farm mutual. And we partnered with Roost because we saw an opportunity to interact with our insureds in a positive manner. Also, we saw some opportunity to gather some data that we would not be able, it would take us a very long time to get on our own.
So, Bob, you have a different model than NEOS. So how did CFM get started with home sensors and telematics?
We became aware of Roost at some trade shows probably 5 years ago, very early on. And I think right after Roost decided they were going to work directly with insureds, our CEO was very interested. He's a forward-thinking person and was very interested in things we can do to provide value to our insureds. As I said, to interact in a positive manner with our insureds, and also the data proposition, the data collection proposition was very attractive for us.
So what has CFM's experience been thus far?
Our experience has been very positive. We are fairly early in our customer journey with Roost. They do a very good job on the marketing side and have worked very closely with our marketing team to collaboratively figure out a customer journey that will work for us to maximize engagement by our insurers.
Can you expand upon the data insurance companies receive?
Well, we will, as James talked about, we will receive all the data from the sensors that go out and are engaged by our insurers. That's going to be very valuable for us. In addition to that, we invested in what Roost calls their HTP program, which is a limited group of insurers who have agreed to aggregate their data and share it among that very limited group. That's going to give us the ability to get several thousand policy years of fire and water data that would take us a very long time to get on our own because we're a fairly small company.
How do the apps and sensors work for loss mitigation to reduce claim costs and hassle?
So there's a variety of ways. In essence, if there's an issue in the home, a burst pipe, somebody breaking into the property, and God forbid a fire, obviously the customers alerted themselves through the app. They can also invite friends and family to alert and manage their own alerting principles. That also goes through to either the insurer and or a network of approved tradespeople or the emergency services, because if it's a real issue, you want that peace of mind at hand. And that's what customers value. I always say the technology is the enabler. Actually, it's the service provision that it provides. Customers want problems, firstly, not to occur, but unfortunately, these things do happen. But then secondly, they want to fix the problem and get help as quickly as possible. And that's what our proposition does.
Well, primarily, it's about providing early detection of perils. If you can be told early enough that there's a water leak forming under your sink, you can actually do something about it while it's still small and before it gets too big and have to create a claim. So it's really about early detection and mitigation. In some cases, the sensors are self-monitored, so the user is monitoring themselves via the app, and if they get notified, they'll do something. But we do have several insurers who want to be notified if there are alerts, so that they can proactively reach out to the consumer. So, if there's an alert happens at a particular property, that insurer will also be told, and they can, have someone in their call center or one of their agents call out and just check, is everything okay? Do you need any help? And then we also have this third-party 24/7 professionally monitored option, where the sensors are being monitored, 24/7 by this third party. And if there's a problem, they will call round the various key holders of that property to check, is everything all right? Do you need to do anything? And then after the fact, if there has been an issue, this home advisor service we have, if, for example, you get a water leak notification, one of the options that pops up in the app is, do you want a plumber to call you? And you can click that button, and within 90 seconds, this local plumber will call and see what they can do.
The access to the sensors to get the engagement and the notifications is a big part of our value proposition for our insureds, but we are also offering a discount for a connected internet monitored device. We hope that's Roost, but it could be any of the other IoT devices.
Good point. So have you received any negative feedback from customers?
Actually, we haven't. Everyone that's engaged the device, and we currently have about a 50% uptake, we're very pleased with that, it is giving it rave reviews. Initially, when we began the customer journey, our marketing efforts, we received some feedback. There was some uncertainty. Is this a Big Brother sort of effort? What are you getting? Are you watching us? We've worked through that with our insureds, and the results have been very positive. The feedback's been very positive.
So, what learnings or best practices would you share with those in the audience that are thinking of pursuing using IoT and smart home sensors?
We've just been running for over 2 years now on our own insurance business, and our loss ratio is significantly better than when compared to business transacted through exactly the same distribution channel. So we've got a loss ratio improvement of 10 percentage points, not just 10% reduction on the claims cost, that's 10 percentage points on the core. Our retention is consistently 7 to 9 percentage points higher. I appreciate retention's a bit lower. Average retention rates are a bit lower in the UK. It's sort of 75, but that's still a 10% plus improvement. And also, which pleases me the most, the engagement and net promoter scores that we've achieved are the best in the industry. So it's really exciting. We're able to benchmark these results because, as hopefully a lot of you might know, our parent company is Aviva. So obviously they're the largest insurer in the UK. So we've got a lot of data to compare and contrast our results against.
Great. So, as you've been talking about all this data that we're able to gather, are there any interesting findings that you can share with the group?
Yeah, definitely. Our system generates a massive amount of data. So today we've got over 4 billion data points that have been reported to the cloud by our various devices that are deployed, and that's growing exponentially. So it's great. It's growing at a phenomenal rate. And the type of information that's in there, obviously we have property location. We also have GPS geotags if the user allows us to, so that we can more accurately locate the devices. We also track shipping and delivery details, and this is important because it ties to the customer journey. So we know that a particular unit has been shipped to a particular user, and if it's arrived yet or not, and if it has arrived, have they installed it or not? And that allows us to create these tailored reminders that that go out. So we might be able to say, for one insurer, they might want after 7 days after delivery, if it isn't installed, they want to send an email to remind people. Another insurer might say, 3 days after delivery, if it's not installed, we want to send an SMS. So we can tailor that. We can obviously look at installation rates, how many are installed, how many are not installed. We look at marketing campaign stats. So we might have kind of different marketing campaigns around getting people to engage and sign up. And so we can look at, the differences between those. Then obviously, we have the peril alerts and the durations of the alerts. So, how many water leaks do we had? How long were they? Freeze alerts, things like that. And then we also have this user verified alert system. So once a user gets an alert, they can, within the app, say, yes, this was a real issue, or no, I was testing, or it was a false alarm, or I spilled some water while I was cooking, that kind of thing. And also with our third-party monitoring, they get verification too. So they will ask questions and record the answers. And then we have temperature and humidity history in a lot of cases, and we can track power outages and things like that. So there's a lot of data there that we can, analyze and create insight from.
Oh, thank you. So this plethora of data, do you just get data for your particular company, or do you get it for a larger group of companies?
So today, the way it works is, that there's a data stream available to the insurer for their particular devices that are assigned to them. And then that information also goes into a custom dashboard for that particular insurer. What we learned was that, we originally set out to provide the data as a stream to the insurer, figuring that they would actually, look at it and analyze it. But what we learned is, that they don't have the time or the resources in some cases to actually spend that time. So now we have a dashboard where that data is analyzed and the insights are extracted. And so that dashboard, again, is just primarily around their particular data. But we are looking at options of how we can compare their data set against, the larger population of Roost customers in an anonymous way. And we're actually working with AAIS on OpenIDL as one particular option for doing that, because it's a very secure and controlled environment for data sharing.
What steps is Roost taking in regards to data security and privacy?
Well, at Roost, we take privacy and security very seriously, right? We're getting data from insurers and from consumers, and they're trusting us with that data. And so from the very get-go, we designed security into the system from the ground up. The background of the founders of Roost are from wireless systems, and wireless, has had security concerns all along, right? Because you can get access to it from anywhere. And so security is a big thing in wireless. So, we knew a lot about security, so we designed it into the system from the ground up. But we're always evolving and making changes based on the latest news that is in the industry around various hacking attempts. So we regularly make updates to improve the system. For example, a couple of recent changes. We've just changed the login mechanism we use in our app to a more secure mechanism. So that helps improve security to prevent unauthorized access, to people's apps. And then another one we've done recently is we've just actually migrated our whole cloud platform to a different cloud platform because it's a newer version and it has better security. And then the other thing we do is we take a very proactive approach, right? So we implement regular penetration testing. And this is where you get essentially a bunch of friendly hackers to try and hack into your system. And there are different types of penetration testing. There's one called black box, which is basically you don't tell them anything about the system. You just let them have at it and see what they find. And then there's white box testing, which is basically you give them, all of the interfaces, all of the details on how the system works, and let them have a go. And that's obviously, the most comprehensive set of tests because they know how the system works.
Obviously, data security and privacy is very important to us. We have our own security protocols in our systems. Roost, James hit on their very impressive security protocols. One of the things that we try to do with this data is anonymize it as much as we can as it comes to us. So the data is not attached to John Doe necessarily, but it is attached to a policy number, which is not public knowledge.
Yeah, I think you've seen a lot of cases in the news around with the growing market of sensors. Obviously, systems and devices are being hacked. That's on the increase in line with that. I think it's really important to point out for insurers wanting to get into this space that the security point is critical given the regulation that requires in the industry and the trust that customers place with their insurers. Some connected platforms are much better than others. Security should always be at the forefront of, decision making when it comes to choosing a partner in this space. I think insurers do, though, however, have an opportunity to quell some of the customer concerns because actually, and this is what we're doing in the UK, is building cyber coverage into the homeowners policy. So we're saying, hey, you know what? We're confident enough in our system and our technology that we'll even give you free cyber cover because, that's how strongly we feel about it and want to protect you in this space.
Wonderful. So for those in the audience that are contemplating using sensors and telematics, do you have any best practices or pitfalls they should be aware of?
Oh, yeah. We've deployed with over 35 different insurers around the world. And we've learned a lot about how to best deploy these things. So the way we would typically work, if we're talking to an insurer and they want to start a program with us, the way it works is we have a 90-day kickoff plan. With the aim being that after 90 days, we're in a point where we can start shipping sensors to consumers and start actually running the program. And it all starts with this set of collaborative meetings between Roost and the insurer. And the goal is to define, which of this, dozen plus journeys that we have they want to use. It might be they want to use one, or it might be they want to use several. And those journeys are, they're around. How do you make the offer initially to the customer? Is it through agents or call center or emails or phone calls or even through postcards? So there's a dozen different journeys that we can use. So we work out which ones they want to use, and those journeys, that they reflect our best practices today. As we've been deploying projects with different customers, we've learned what are the best practices, and we update those journeys to reflect those best practices. But those journeys can be modified and tailored to various insurers. So if an insurer particularly says, I want to do it this way, we can accommodate that. We can also say, hey, we tried that with a different insurer, and these are the results from that. It was either successful or it wasn't. So we can definitely give feedback on that. But once we've defined the journeys, we then start working with the insurance company around messaging. What do they want to go out in their customer communications? How do they want it worded? What branding do they want on it? We also work with them on creating custom packaging for the sensors that they ship. So, they come with their logo on it if they want that. And then, in parallel, we'll be developing and releasing the white label app to all the various app stores that have got their car scheme and logos in it. And we'll create this dashboard. So that's ready, the day the first unit ships, and they can start to see the deployment real time on their dashboard.
Great. Well, thank you. So putting on a more forward-thinking hat, where do you see smart home technology going over the next 5 years?
Oh, well, as a technologist, this is where I can speak for hours, so I'll try and be concise. But from my perspective, technology is moving at an astounding rate. Even in the 6 years that we've been running Roost, the technology has advanced significantly. So I view that in the next 5 years, it will be leaps and bounds ahead of where we are now. But the two things that I see that are happening, continuously, are driving towards smaller and cheaper devices. So integration is improving, and battery power is improving. So I think we'll end up seeing a lot more smaller and cheaper devices, which means that you can end up with effectively digital dust. You can spread these things around, these sensors around all over the place, and gather data from all over the place for long periods of time off the batteries. But my fundamental belief is that we have to use technology to resolve issues for the consumer, not provide them hurdles. So everything we do, we try to figure out how to make it as simple as possible to install. And the easiest thing for the consumer to do is to do nothing. So we're trying to find ways to allow the consumer to not have to do anything at all. And that's part of the reason that we switched to the cellular standards for our new platform of products. The benefit of cellular, obviously, is it's always on, it's always there, and the consumer doesn't have to do anything to set it up. They can just pull the pull tab, or they can just plug it in the wall and it works. But up until recently, the hardware cost for creating a cellular device was too expensive. The chipsets to use it were too big, and they were too power hungry, so they couldn't run off of batteries. And then coupled with that, the data plans were too expensive to actually want to use. But now there are new standards, new cellular standards that are optimized for Internet of Things, and they are using much less power and much less data. So now we can do that. And as a result of that, there are data plans now that are much cheaper. And so from our product perspective, what we do is we actually don't tell the consumer that it's cellular, because if you tell someone, hey, this thing's got a cell phone chip in it, they're thinking, oh gosh, I've got to go to the carrier, I've got to get a SIM card, I've got to get a cell phone plan. So we don't actually tell them that. The actual cost of the cell phone plan is bundled into the price of the product. So they never know, and they don't have to take out a cell phone plan separately. But all of this allows the consumer to have this zero install setup experience that I'm very keen on, which is, they don't have to do anything. There's no app to install to get it working. They can actually get it working straight out of the box without doing anything at all.
That was some great information. I would really like to thank all three for the great insights that we learned today. I'm very invigorated where the future is taking us, and I hope everyone got a chance to learn something new to consider or explore that you might be able to put into place in your organization.
Thanks,
Thank you for having me.